Everyone, hello everyone, hello everyone. I think we're now actually officially.
There an echo? Is there an echo? Is there an echo?
I know, I know. Yes, the Canucks. We were just finding out just now. Mike just reported were fined $50,000 for tampering, which is really not tampering. I mean, they really weren't tampering here. They were just being stupid. It was a stupid
It
tax.
happens a lot. It's really
All the
nothing.
time. Betting just bets. This is for saying something stupid. This is a $50,000 for saying something stupid tax.
We'll call it Ron Wilson's law.
Yeah, the Wilson's Law. I like that. I like that. That's good. So it's pretty funny. So we've got lots of different things to talk about today. We also, Russ, you were just buying ant traps, you said?
Yes, yes.
That's always fun.
Yeah, I had to go shopping for it and threw it up on the counter, and in a couple days they'll hopefully all be dead.
So here's my theory on that, and my daughter shares this theory that we had an ant problem in our bathroom a while ago, and the master bathroom upstairs, which is where the master bathes. I always like that master thing. Anyway, the master bathroom upstairs. So my daughter was like, "Why are you keeping all the dead ants in the sink?" And I'm like, "That's because you want them to send a message. You want other ants to come out and see the carnage. You need to show ants what's up. Whenever I clean the dead ants out right away, the ants just keep coming. When I leave the dead ants on there, I'm convinced they go back and say it's terrible out there. Like they go back to their little swarm and say it's a bloodbath. We got to get the hell out of there. You're at war with these little critters. You got to let them know what's going on.
I mean, I've correspondingly had an ant problem in my place. The house I live in is about 100 years old, and there's lots of little cracks and crevices. And I've gone the ant trap route the last couple of years, and it seems like it's a conspiracy. They climb over the ant trap.
No, it works. It works. You got
sending a powerful enough message, Mike. You've got to send a message.
I'm trying to shove them into the friggin' ant trap, and
probably buy them from the dollar store. You can't buy the dollar store ant trap.
You really can't. The bad ant traps. I mean, you could just serve those bad ant traps to your children. They're perfectly fine. They're not going to hurt anything.
I didn't. I bought like Raid ant traps and like really good ones, and this didn't help. So now I've become an ant assassin. Any ant I see,
an ant assassin.
I am stomping. I swear to God, I've killed about 1,000 ants in about 2 weeks, and with the water bill for my landlady is probably going crazy because I'm flushing them all down the toilet.
You're flushing the ants?
Flushing them. Push them into the sink, and I just drown them.
Just throw them outside. I mean, they're biodegradable.
That's too much work. Come on.
I am the kind of person who will do that though. I don't like killing bugs at all. Like I have a real fear of bugs. This is a real reality of me. I will try to catch a bug, and I'll catch flies in a glass. I'll keep the glass up against the wall and bring them off and catch them and throw them outside.
I don't kill everything, so that's true. But like a fly, forget it. He's dead.
Yeah.
No, flies are particularly annoying, but the ones, and this will be the last bug story we tell. Those long millipedes, those real long ones.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh, we get them in Buffalo, and that is something like when I lived at home when I was young, my mother would start screaming, and I'm like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I come up, and there'd be one of these millipedes climbing along. I had to get up.
I'll tell you what you get in Buffalo: an inordinate amount of bugs. Because when I got home, like normally, you go on a trip and you have a little bit of bug stuff on the car. I could never keep the window clean because of all the bugs, even though I had that windshield wiper fluid that's supposed to kill them, clear it out. And it took a rain yesterday to finally clear my car of buffalo, essentially.
It's not as bad. It's not as bad as Winnipeg, apparently, because we asked Peter Tessier on Friday. Apparently, their mosquitoes are about as big as June bugs.
Oh yeah, they've got big ass mosquitoes up there that have to survive a longer time. I mean, the winter and stuff like that. So they're tough. They're tough animals. No, I know that's totally true. The last thing I'll say about this, the funniest thing, when I was in France for a while after college, I went to do some missionary type work, help building homes for poor people in Marseille. It was really cool. I was there for 6 months, and I was living in a trailer, like an old trailer that was packed in the back. It was pretty, and it was just infested with snails, like snails everywhere. Okay, this is France, southern France. This is just very stereotypical, but there were snails everywhere.
What's for dinner? Escargot.
I know. I could have easily eaten snails every night just from picking them off my wall. So I was there with a couple other people, and the one girl who was there with us, she just de-snailified and duct taped her whole thing so there were no snails. I would get snails, but like I said, I hate bugs. I hate them, and this is like my wife's like, get the little. My son who's 10, he'll take any bug and he'll capture it. And he'll take it outside. He'll just grab it in his hand and take it outside. I'm like terrified of them. So I remember the first time I get into the snail thing, and I'm like, I get into the snail-infested trailer, and I'm looking on the wall, and I'm like, there's a big snail there, and it's just on the wall, and I go up to it just like you would a fly, and I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, it's a snail. Like I don't have to sneak up on it. It's not. Right. Just picked it off the wall and threw it outside. Yeah. You're
a lot bigger than the bugs. I just want to let you know.
I know, and you would think they would be a lot more afraid of us than we are them. I always use that excuse, but then my reaction to that is that no, we're smarter than they are. They aren't smart enough to realize that we're scary. We are smart enough to realize that they're creepy looking.
Okay.
That's my theory. Let's begin. Let's begin the show. That bell doesn't work. All right, I'm saying.
Lousy bell.
I'm gonna ring this one, which makes me crazy.
It's actually the long stretch of silence that I find when I edit. So.
Okay. Well, let's just have an uncomfortable silence then, right?
We're good to go.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, June 18th. It's not Wednesday. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, June 18th, 2016.
It's not
That's
the 18th.
Not June 18th either. Another uncomfortable silence, please. You'll now know the second uncomfortable silence is the comfortable silence you have to follow. Okay, ready? Here we go. The 28th. Jesus. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday. It's June, and it's the 28th of that month. It's the year 2016.
I'm Michael Agello, and this is the 102nd anniversary of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
Whoa.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and I don't want to be in social studies anymore. Move on.
Adam Eklund's still amazed that with all the history that Mike knows, he doesn't like to play Hamilton. You're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time of day to kind of fill you in on the comings and goings. And this is one of our busiest weeks. We appreciate all the watching you guys are doing and all the viewing and turning us on to your friends. We really do. We do this all summer, by the way. And just so you know, we are going to continue doing this. We can't pay to have Stamkos not be signed until the middle of June enough, but we would like that to happen. So you keep coming to us, so we can keep talking to you. But no, actually, we do really fun things in the month of June and July and August. We go all summer long. We don't take a break at all. We really do.
Baseball.
What was that?
We talk baseball.
No, we don't. Actually, we don't talk much baseball because I won't allow that. Baseball is a stupid sport. But
it's not a stupid sport.
Well, it's not a sport. That's true.
It's a sport. It's more than a sport than golf, so move on.
Well, I'm not. No one's debating the merits of baseball versus golf, but baseball. When it comes to hockey, baseball falls a far, far distant third. And talking about more
of a sport than let's see, than curling.
Can we talk for a second soccer? Because I want to throw one thing out there real quick about soccer. Okay. So you know what happened in the final, the Copa final? Messi misses a penalty kick, right? He shoots it over the net. This is a great lesson for anybody who's ever taught, youth soccer players, because penalty kicks are really they're stressful. I've seen girls move completely to tears and just devastated by the fact they blew a shot like that. It happens all the time. The penalty kicks are all about will the shooter choke. That's what it has nothing to do with the goalies really. The goalies might get lucky, but usually it's will the shooters choke. And Messi choked. He just choked in the biggest stage of his life. And this is the greatest player in the world, and he'll go back to his beautiful wife and millions and zillions of dollars, and he'll be fine. But
did he retire from that team now?
So what he does is that he retires. Okay, he says, "I am done." This is and all the European writers, and I'm not trying to rip Europe today at all. And they're fine. They couldn't hold on to Britain, but that's okay. They're fine. But I think but what the reality of the situation is that European writers are like, it's understandable that Messi would quit after. I'm like, what the hell are we talking about? Like, right, what kind of world do we live in? Yeah, what lesson does this send kids?
It sends a bad lesson. What is the dimensions of a soccer goal?
It's like 22 by 8.
Okay. What are the average dimensions of a goalie?
6 by 2.
So why in the world are you always trying to go high like in hockey? Why don't you fake going high and just shoot in the left-hand corner where he's probably not going to be able to ever get to it any chance?
No, I mean, you honestly, all you have to do, is a good solid pass into the net. I mean, that's what we teach our kids.
Why is everybody trying to shoot high like they're sniping it?
Yeah, it is strange. I don't understand that either.
You're talking about a guy who against Team USA on a free kick picked the top corner from 40 feet out.
Oh yeah, no, I mean this guy can hit anything, and you know.
Yeah, I mean I saw that, but this one you're slowing down the action on this one. On that one, you're just going with reflexes. On this one, you're the guy in control.
Oh yeah, no, it's all about the pressure. Okay, it's all about the stress of doing it. It's like hitting a 12-inch putt. That's what you're looking at. It's like that's the equivalent of the difficulty of this.
But the thing is with this act is like this is a Money Mayweather move by Messi. It's basically like okay, he's making his $100 million or whatever the hell he's making. And Mayweather, after he beat Pacquiao, he retired. Now, if somebody offers him big money, he will come out of retirement more than likely.
Well, he's gonna go. He's not retiring from soccer. He's retiring from the Argentinian team. He grew up. This is where he grew up until he was 12, and then he moved to Spain. He plays in Spain now. Probably going to play for the Spanish team next. That's probably what's going to happen.
Until he misses a kick with them, then he's going to quit that team.
Right, and that's the thing is, it's so disappointing. Like when you're trying to, I sit there and I'm like, you know what? This is the greatest thing to be able to tell kids. Don't worry about this shot. You might make a mistake. It happens to the best. Messi missed a shot, right? I know we're gonna, but to tie this into hockey for a second, there was an excellent Instagram, and I'm trying to find it, and I can't find it right now. But it was a really good Instagram. So it had a picture of Messi on the top, with his hands with his face in his hands, and it says after losing the championship for his team, he quits. And then below that had a split screen of Steve Smith, putting the puck into his own net, and the next year Wayne Gretzky handing Steve Smith the Stanley Cup, right, and saying this is how hockey handles it. He doesn't quit. The next year he gets Steve Smith. You remember was handed the Stanley Cup first when the Oilers won the Stanley Cup the year after Steve Smith did the famous scoring himself goal against the Calgary Flames. So. I mean, is this just a European thing or what? It's so frustrating. It's just.
I mean, you screw up the intro every other show. You never quit.
I know. I mean, and people are asking me to quit all the time, and hey, I've got text Mike that say if you don't come on the show, we're screwed. So don't do that. So yeah. So the reality is that you guys do a great job without me at this point. Those texts were long ago. But yeah, the whole thing of this is maybe I should quit. Maybe I should. But that's the whole. It's such a bad message to send to kids, and it's just hockey players would never do this. I'm having this argument with my daughter last night, and she loves Messi. She's a real big Messi fan, and she was mad at us for doing this. I'm like, how can you be having this discussion? I'm like. She's like, I feel bad for him. I'm like, we all felt bad for him at the time. There's no question about it. You do. I mean, I don't care if he makes millions of dollars. I don't care if he's got six beautiful wives all around the world or whatever. He's just got. This is a guy who.
Bartolo Colon, come on.
Right. I mean, he has overcome great things. He took hormones because of growing deficiencies as a kid. This is a really incredible story. And he is the greatest, most fun player to watch in the world. But he missed a shot. It's okay. It's like, and it's good to show kids it's okay to miss a shot.
He'll be on that list of players that choked. It's just the way.
Oh no, it's going to go up on on the next Bleacher Report 50 greatest chokes of all time.
Yeah, I mean, Greg Norman can't get away from it. Like the only thing you can do from getting away from a choke is, like you said, to not choke the next time.
John Mandeville, the 2004 Yankees.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Buckner, like look at all these. I mean, all you have to do is say that, right? The kicker from Buffalo, in the Super Bowl.
Well, he's still feeling the pain. I think Bill Buckner feels a little bit of relief now that the Red Sox have won 3 World Series in the last few years. So
right, but it happens.
Will never win, so that's tough.
Life is about Life is about how you overcome this stuff. That's what it's about. That's what I teach my kids. Life is not about how you do in the great situations. It's how you do how you handle the poor ones, how you handle the mistakes you make, how you handle the things that hit you.
It's really not about how much money you make and how pretty you look. It's just slogging through life, even if it's crappy, right? That's what you're telling everybody?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Speaking about handling mistakes, let's talk about the Edmonton Oilers.
All right, let's transition into Edmonton. That's perfectly fine. But before we do that, I want to talk about my blog a little bit today, because yesterday we were we have a lot of people who watch this podcast, and I talk about a lot of scouts and NHL people. We've had GMs call right after the show that are hilarious. One that you would never expect to be the one who calls, but he's called a couple times. who texted me up, and so yesterday we talked about how there's no offer sheets. There's no way there's an offer sheet. It wouldn't make any sense for there to be an offer sheet now. The cap's staying low and all that stuff. And I literally get a text about 2 hours after the show. A guy had just watched it. A source in Boston who said to me, "Don't count out the Boston Bruins for making an offer sheet for Jacob Trouba." And I said, "Well, that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me because he'll match anything, right?" Yeah, he has said that, but and then it occurred to me, he said that, but there's still if it's enough money, then you look at a really good return for Winnipeg. Is this kind of defenseman? I had an interesting Kat, a reader of ours in Winnipeg, is really interesting Flyers fan out in Winnipeg who has a lot of good insight. She said to me, if they move Trouba, they'll be looking for a top defenseman forever, and they'll never get one again. And I said I don't really think that's the case anymore. I said because top defensemen now I think are easier to find than they used to be. When it used to be that you had to be like Pronger, and you had to find a 6'6" defenseman. That's really not the case anymore.
Right.
I think it's more about skill and speed, and there seems to be a lot. That seems to be something that the prospects are coming up with a lot these days, right? So, for if the Bruins were to throw $9 million at Jacob Trouba, I mean, that sounds insane, right? And to all of us, it sounds completely crazy. I mean, Jacob Trouba has potential to be that good, but he's not there yet. And but would he go? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's going to happen, but if it did happen, I think that Winnipeg would match it. And then I also think that Boston will have opened up, a box that they didn't want to open up, and down the road, it's going to happen to them. So, because Kevin Lowe, I think, was the last one that did it. Was he the last one?
Yeah,
the Flyers just did it with Shea Weber, right? So.
Yeah, but as you've said, in that situation, they almost did Nashville a favor.
Right, they did Nashville a favor. That's why I kind of don't look at it. But yeah, the Flyers did that one. But I remember Kevin Lowe, when he did it, there was a tremendous amount of bad feeling, and that's what it creates. So
Ryan O'Reilly, wasn't Ryan O'Reilly one too?
Hell, Brian Burke wanted to.
Ryan O'Reilly was one. Yes, you're right.
Oh, Brian Burke wanted to beat up Kevin Lowe in a barn.
Oh yeah, that was something. I mean, but that was just Burke being Burke. I mean, that was.
But the thing is, okay, and you can look at this in one of two ways. Offer sheets might be more possible with teams being tight against the cap.
Right.
But the draft is becoming more and more important, and if you offer, for your example, a $9 million offer to Jacob Trouba, I believe that's 3 first-round picks. I believe that's the compensation. Nobody in
Winnipeg, you take that, man. You take those 3 first-round picks and you run it because you're going to get Jacob Trouba's replacement with those picks.
Boston, in their right mind, is not going to offer him $9 million. They're not going to give up 3 first-round picks for Jacob Trouba.
I don't think it's $9 million. I don't think you gave enough to go that high, right? I mean, isn't it? It's like 6 or 7 million that become 3 first-round draft picks.
Like 2 first-round picks. Right. And again, I don't think they're going to do that because Mike has a good point.
Yeah.
Boston's right in that mode now where, yes, if they get Trouba, they could be a playoff team. And if they don't get Trouba, they could be picking in an even better spot next year where they could get that guy.
They could
and in 2 years not have to spend the money on Jacob Trouba. That's what, That's
implying patience with the Boston Bruins. And I'm telling you, this Boston Bruins team is not patient. This Boston Bruins management is not patient.
Well, okay, I'll give you a more likely scenario because it's a team that is tight against the cap, even though they just bought out a player and they have a little bit more room. But I think there's a greater likelihood of a Matt Dumba getting an offer sheet because Minnesota is really tight up against the cap than Trouba, because all Winnipeg has to do is match it. They got a lot of room to match the deal. But a team that's tight up against the cap, like Minnesota, if somebody offers Dumba $6 million a year, which I don't think he deserves right now, coming off his entry-level deal, but we're talking about a strategic move as an offer sheet, then they might be in trouble, and they might not be able to match it.
See, to me, I think that's coming. I think the minor offer sheets is the one you have to look out for. I mean, not that that's minor, but like the offer sheets of like we've seen before, like the O'Reilly offer sheet, those kind of offer sheets, they seem much more likely, like you say, Mike, because of the cap issue. The other thing about signing an offer sheet that people have to remember, and this is what I brought up. This is why I don't think. I mean, I'm like I say, my job is to report rumors, not to say whether or not I think they're going to happen. But this is why I don't think this one happens. Okay, this is why I don't think the Winnipeg Trouba for Boston one happens. I don't think Trouba wants to stay in Winnipeg, and the reality of an offer sheet is you have to want to stay where you're going to go to sign this. Like Shea Weber, when he signed that offer sheet with the Flyers, he knew he'd be okay staying for the next 7 years in Nashville. It wasn't, or 10 years, whatever it was. It was crazy, right? I think it was 10 years at the time, right? So
It was.
yeah, this was before the lockout. So before the second lockout. So you have to be, so in order to sign an offer sheet, two things have to be in play. One, you have to be willing to leave your team, obviously, to go to another place and sign another place. But more than that, if you're a good player and your team's saying they're going to match, you have to be willing to stay there. You have to be willing to stay there because that's what Trouba's looking at here. Because Trouba could find himself very much stuck. Now, of course, I guess it depends on no movement clauses, no trade clauses, and all that stuff. But I think that's why this doesn't happen, because I don't think Trouba is sold on staying in Winnipeg yet. Now Byfuglien wasn't as well, and the Winnipeg Jets did a great job at convincing Byfuglien to stay. So maybe I think that's why they're saying they're not going to trade him right now.
I think what's at work here, Rack, is the fact that Winnipeg wants him to take a bridge deal, and he sees all these long-term deals getting signed. Riley in Toronto. I mean, Ekblad's going to be signed to an 8-year extension. Not to say that Trouba is in the same category, but there are defensemen out there. Goligoski in free agency, Yandel in free agency.
Yeah, he's in that category easily.
You're talking. He probably wants the long-term 6-year, 7-year deal, and maybe Winnipeg is not offering him that. And that's the Dougie Hamilton situation from last year. That may lead to him leaving Winnipeg. Maybe he doesn't despise Winnipeg, but maybe Winnipeg is just not hell-bent on giving him that long-term security.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm him, I sign the bridge deal. I mean, the bridge deal is because get yourself to be a UFA at 27 or 28 and go out there and and then sign wherever the hell you want to play. I mean, look at Stamkos. Stamkos is a perfect example of that, right? So he's put himself into that spot where he can now be a UFA,
I do think if Boston does it, I think Winnipeg would match it.
Yes, I agree.
I think they would too, but the other thing this can do, though, is that just the threat of the offer sheet can open up trade talks. This has happened too before with the Flyers in Nashville. We're talking trade for Shea Weber until the very last second, until they offer sheeted him. And the reason the Flyers still to this day believe this 100%, the reason the Flyers offer sheeted him is because the Predators told them that we have a better offer from the Rangers, and the Flyers at that point decided that he was either going to be a Flyer or a Predator for the rest of his career, and he wasn't going to be a Ranger. And that's why the Flyers did the offer sheet. Offer sheets aren't cheap. They cost about $150,000 to put together, by the way. Now, that doesn't mean a lot maybe to an NHL team, but it's still money, and it takes a lot of time and energy. The offer sheets are really expensive to put together. I don't know why. It seems like they shouldn't be. It seems like there should be a flat-out template for that kind of thing, but there isn't. There's legally you have to put them together. So I don't know. I think it would be interesting right now. If I'm Trouba, I would definitely visit some teams. I mean, why not? I mean, you're allowed to do that right now. I mean, as an RFA, you could do that and, at least make your team realize that you're serious about possibly leaving. That's what we're gonna find. It's gonna be time. I wanted to get into a couple of these other free agents too. I talked to him. One is Lee Stepniak, who we sort of have forgotten about every year. We forget about Lee Stepniak.
Why?
Well, last year he had a hell of a year, and
he did.
I'll give him credit.
First time.
He was a walk-on. He was basically a tryout contract in New Jersey. He got New Jersey a couple draft picks. So I mean, bully for Ray Shero to dig him out, find him, and have him go and have a good season with New Jersey, and then he got traded to Boston. I mean, maybe he probably gets himself a 1 or 2 year deal this year, but I don't know what are you hearing?
He'll get a couple years.
Yeah.
I heard he could get a 3-year deal.
Was he
3 years,
good?
like 3-year, $10 million deal is my prediction for Lee Stepniak.
Okay. Was he good because he found himself again, or was he good because he was like the best guy on a bad team? Again, I always say in the NHL, if you're on a bad team and you get enough ice time, you'll get goals.
Right.
And
he was their guy. He was. You're right about that. And that is the question. But Stepniak has been good. He's really not been bad throughout his career.
Yes, but it's been a while.
Yeah, but the thing is he basically was the New Jersey version of P.A. Parenteau in the sense that he was playing top 6 minutes where on any other team probably wouldn't have been. And
it's interesting you say that because the person I talked to said, okay, they were joking. I was joking around with them because they were saying, there's top. We always talk about every team says, oh, we're out there looking for a top 6 forward, and we always joke about that. That just doesn't exist. You can't go out and get a top 6 forward. Everybody wants a top 6 forward, right? And then this person said, well, Lee Stepniak's a top 6 forward, and he's out there. And this is actually a case where you actually do have what you could legitimately say he's a top 6.
He's not a real top 6.
He's not a real top 6 forward.
I don't know.
He's a created top 6 forward. That's what I'm saying is he's a good complementary player who got more than usual ice time and topped out in terms of his offensive statistics. He had a good year. There's no doubting that. But if you're talking about a team that's above average, he's a third line guy.
I'll break it down. I have a good analogy.
Okay.
If Mike is on Hockey Night in Canada, he's the 5th guy on the roster, but here he's number 1.
Okay. Let's look at his stats for a second, though, okay? Because I was checking these out, and they're really not what you guys are saying, in my opinion. They're not so bad. I mean, he has.
We're not saying that his stats were bad. We're saying that the stats are misleading because what did he have? Like 18 minutes of ice time per game. I mean, he was on the top line in New Jersey. I think he played with Camilleri and he played with either Zajac or Henrique. On one of their top lines, so he got premium ice time in New Jersey, and he's not going to get that anywhere else. Very, very few places.
790 career NHL games. He's got 184 goals, 236 assists for 420 points. Okay, that is definitely border top 6 forward. I mean, you're not talking about.
Oh, it's not.
I think so.
No.
I mean, when he has played, enough games, he will put in. I mean, obviously, when he was young in 2006 or 7, he had a 27-goal season for St. Louis, right?
Right.
And then he had, a 13-year season after that. So he fell off, and then he got hurt, and he had a 3-goal season. But then, when he's played games, he tends to be about a 20-goal scorer. That's what you tend to see out of him. Okay, so he's a 20-goal scorer to me as a top 6 forward.
But he's not really a 20-goal scorer. See, he's had 28 once in his life. He's had 19 a few times. 16, 15, he's not a 20-goal scorer.
Well, because of injuries, he's missed a lot of time, right? Injuries have hurt him for sure. So, but he scores on about the pace of that a 20-goal scorer. Is what I'm saying. Like he scores roughly. He's got 184 goals in 790 games. Okay, so that's roughly 20 goals in 80 games. That just if you go right out, if you just flesh out to it, 184 goals in 790 games. That's roughly 20 and 80. So. You're looking at basically a 20-goal scorer, and to me, 20-goal scorers are second-line players. And
I would not pay him like a 20-goal scorer. He's not scoring 20 goals next year.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is, I don't think you have to pay him like that either. I mean, I think I don't think he's a $4 million. I mean, what is a 20-goal scorer? $4 million player?
Let's just say this: if a team goes out and signs Lee Stempniak for 2 years at maybe $950,000 or $1 million to something like in that range, that's a good deal. If they sign him for $2.5 to $3 million, they're insane. He averaged 18 minutes 43 seconds time on ice last year, and he had 16 goals.
Let me point out something else. And look, I think he's a great guy. I do. I've interviewed Lee.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
A real hockey gentleman. But 3 points in 28, actually 6 points in 28 career playoff games is not necessarily anybody I'm investing too much in either, because if I'm a playoff team, he's not going to perform for me.
He earned himself a one-way contract with the year that he had last year. He earned himself a little money, but he didn't earn himself a 3-year deal making over $2 million. If somebody does that, I think they're out to lunch.
I think somebody will. I mean, I really do.
We'll see. There's a lot of people out to lunch.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out, but there are some teams that are interested in him. This is the Sabres are one of them that I was talking to.
He's a West Seneca native. He's from suburban Buffalo, so that's right.
Signs with Buffalo. That's like another Matt Molson signing. You'll just watch the decline.
Right, and and that's the thing. He's 33 years old.
Yep. You're going to just watch the decline. This year, he'll have like 15 goals. Next year, it'll just go down.
That's not where Buffalo needs to go. Buffalo's already got Gianta, Molson.
Yeah.
They have veteran guys who are not contributing based on how much they're making. They cannot go down that road. It would be better for them to go out and re-sign Jamie McGinn, even if it's more expensive, because at least
Jamie McGinn would be better.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't he feel like a guy who's hanging on for the? I mean, playing devil's advocate a little bit, what I'm doing is what I'm doing here. But he also feels like a perfect fit for like a Vegas team. Like this is the kind of guy that should come into there.
Maybe.
He has shown he can score with minutes, and he has shown he can do that. you know, and with more responsibility. I mean, the Flyers are another team that's interested in Lee Stepniak, which was surprising to me because based on all this that we've seen. Now, I'm not talking about, you know, a long-term deal here again. Maybe this is a 1 or 2 year deal, but the Flyers have interest. I mean, they see Lee Stepniak and Matt Reed, you know, and they look at the combination there. You'd rather have Stepniak in your lineup.
He's not going to play a top.
What combination? Matt Reed hasn't done anything in 2 years.
No, I know. I mean, you look at the difference. I mean, you'd rather have Stepniak than Matt Reed. So that's.
But he's not going to play a top 6 role with the Flyers. If they sign him to a 1 year deal, he's a third line guy.
Right.
He's probably a third line guy who steps up into the second line when guys are hurt. That's what you look at it.
Maybe, yeah.
You sign Lee Stepniak to the Flyers, he'll be like the same as Jim Dowd. Like, I don't see why they would do it.
I think he's more of a scorer than Jim Dowd.
Okay, so he'll score 5 more goals.
What the Flyers are looking for is that they're looking for scoring. They've flat out come out and said it. That's what they want. They want to get scoring. They feel as if they don't, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that
you know what they should do? Maybe try Clayton Jordan Wheel. He didn't get a chance last year. Let's see what he looks like in camp.
Yeah, I mean, and also remember, I mean, a lot of this has to do with Voracek just having such a horrendous year last year. I mean, that the scoring shouldn't have been there for the Flyers, but Voracek wasn't.
Well,
there.
but look, I think there was a reason Dave Haxtell met with Voracek in the Czech Republic because they knew the last time Voracek had a defensive coach, his offense slipped, and it happened again. And so now it's up to the coach to figure out how to get Voracek's offense back because everything's there. Voracek never played bad. He was always getting shots. He was always moving. So it's there. You have to now figure out how to work him back into where you get that offensive production again.
I agree with that. Troy Brouwer is another name that we haven't really talked about, but I wanted to get into some of these UFAs before July 1st that are out there that are getting interest here. Troy Brouwer is, you know, as we all remember, he's the guy who was traded for Calipos. I mean, not Caliposo. Sorry, jeez. Why am I losing my mind there?
Oshie.
Oshie, sorry, the other Minnesota kid, TJ Oshie, right? Traded for Oshie, and had a really, you know, scored probably the most important goal of the season for the St. Louis Blues against the Chicago Blackhawks to win that series, and showed moments when again in playoffs he was a big time player. He really had a great playoff for them. He had a much better playoff than in regular season.
Big time playoff guy.
Yeah, he's always been a big time playoff guy. I think St. Louis. This is one of the reasons I think St. Louis could be, and they're saying they're not in on him, but I have a sense that this is one of the guys that if they were to trade Shattenkirk, they would be back in on. Like this reminds me a lot of a couple of other players where we've seen this before, where you have a guy who is like Brendan Saad's a good example. The Hawks were trying to do something with Brendan. They were trying to move some guys to make room for Brendan Saad, and they couldn't. They ended up losing Brendan Saad. Brouwer's sort of in that boat, you know. And if they can't move Shattenkirk, which you know, there's lots of debates on that one still.
To me, Brouwer's the perfect guy for Buffalo. I put him on a line with Evander Kane and tell Brouwer get some more out of Kane because he can't get through to him, and he would really be bothersome to Kane because Kane would have to do a lot more than he does on the ice now to satisfy Brouwer. And I think Brouwer would also set an example for a lot of the younger players on that team. Sam Reinhart, guys like that. That would be a way better signing.
I haven't heard Buffalo connected with him, but you makes sense. I agree with you.
Our friend John Shannon on Sportsnet mentioned today about Vancouver and Troy Brouwer. He's from Vancouver. Okay. And, I mean, again, this is the delusionary situation with Jim Benning in Vancouver where that team needs to be rebuilt, but because maybe their ownership doesn't want them rebuilt and they got the Sedins and they have a few other players who are veteran guys that they're keeping around, they're going to add to that group. And a guy like Brouwer, who's from Vancouver, might be somebody that they go after. I mean, from
I don't doubt that at all. But I disagree. I still think Russ and I both disagree with you about the Vancouver Canucks. I think they're on a much better track than you do.
Yes. Oh God, no. I think that right now they have some good young players that I like. I do like Horvat. I do like Virtanen. I think those guys need to be given the ball and run with it. I think the Sedins are past it. I think Alex Burrows is past it. You know, Ryan Miller had injuries last year. That team finished 28th in the NHL.
I know, but they played a lot of really young players in getting there. I mean, they may have pushed a couple guys in a little bit early, but they did. I mean, what do you think, Russ?
Yeah, no, I think they did play a lot of young players, and I don't think they're past it as far as the Sedins go. You still can get some mileage out of the Sedins. It's not like, you know, there's no creativeness there and no playmaking.
Right.
That's there. You just got to put somebody else on the line. And we got to remember, I mean, Brandon Sutter was going to have a good year last year, and he got hurt for them. That was a good trade.
Yeah,
if he
it was.
back 100%. That's another good body back there. He was doing well for them.
I mean, they have their issues on defense, and they've got some guys they have to pick, and they have to decide whether they're going to bring some guys back on defense. That's the other issue still out there with them as well. But I mean, and I still think Ryan Miller is perfectly fine as a goalie. I don't think
fine. He had a great year last year.
Yeah, I don't think he's shot at all. So.
But he got injured, I think, twice, and that's a problem. I mean, when you have to rely completely on Jacob Markstrom.
Well, Markstrom's a good backup, though. He is.
Yeah, but when you put him into the starter's role.
Yeah, no, you're sure. I agree with that.
That's a problem. Yeah, if he can play 20, 25 games and be good, but when you have to play him 40, that's a problem.
There was a great story that Brian Lawton shared about Miller, and did you guys hear this? I think you guys wouldn't because you were at the draft, but I'll share it.
We were busy. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. But Brian Lawton talked about how Miller was basically like an unknown when he was drafted. He was completely he was really small. He was really underweight. He was playing in a bizarre league. I think I'm trying to forget what league it was. He was playing in was it the USHL or something like that.
He might have been, yeah.
Wasn't a normal thing, and he was trying to get the Sabres to take him. And Lawton was representing him with the group, with the Octagon the group, he was with, and all this stuff. And he was representing him, and he went up to a Sabre scout and sold the Sabre scout really hard. And there was one person on the Sabres who actually, pushed for Miller and got that signing done. You know who that person was? Jim Benning.
Oh, there you go.
How about that? Isn't that ironic? I mean, it's just like so here's Benning, Benning was the one who brought Miller into Buffalo. Probably should have seen that more when we were looking to where Miller was going to sign. If I had known that story, that would have been an interesting thing to follow up on.
Coincidentally, the talk is that the two people who have long association with Milan Lucic, that being Benning when he was in Boston and Peter Chiarelli, are going to bid up Lucic on July 1 to the point that somebody is going to probably overpay him.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I mean, the big word on Lucic right now, there's like a talking point that's going around when you talk to people. You're starting to hear the politicizing of UFAs now when I talk to sources. There's a talking point on Lucic that people kept saying how he's, he's 28, right? You forgot he was 28. He's still 28. He's only 28. And yeah, it's like, yeah, but he doesn't look like he's 28. He looks like he's like 34. But he's, okay, yeah, but he is only 28. But he played a tough game to be 28. Yeah. He had a good, easy year in LA. It's different. He played in Boston all those years. He's got, if he doesn't play that kind of game, he's still got skill, and that might be true. And there might be something to that with Lucic. But speed still matters a lot. And I still think that's the end of the day.
Yeah, we're just worried 3 years down the line what his speed is going to be.
Right.
Right. I mean, he's sort of like a rental car that that it's owned by Enterprise Rent-A-Car that's only 3 years old, and then you find out it has like 60,000 miles. And it's been around.
Right.
Our power forwards, they're and the type of game that he plays. I mean, learn the lesson of what the Leafs went through with David Clarkson. I mean, not to equate what David Clarkson was with what Lucic was at his highest level, because Lucic, he won a Stanley Cup and he's been a very effective player for a number of years. But that wear and tear, especially now when he's in his late 20s, it's going to show pretty quickly. And yeah, go ahead, Russ.
I was going to say, I will say this, though. If he were to play with the Sedins, he could knock a lot of pucks loose, at least for the first couple of years, and that could really help them. They do have Gabranson on D also now, which does help.
Yeah, that's a huge pickup. I forgot about that.
Pickup. So if they were to get Lucic, I think people would change their attitude about the Canucks, because I think he could revive that top line.
Yeah, I would buy that.
But the only thing that, because going to the Edmonton point of view, if you're going to go out and spend probably $5 to $6 million in free agency on Milan Lucic, then I would hope that Peter Chiarelli, in tandem with that, is going to move one of his forwards for a defenseman. Because if they're going out in unrestricted free agency and signing forwards, I mean, there was a report today that they're going after Jason Demers.
Yeah, I heard that.
Jason Demers played for McClellan in San Jose, but my God, hasn't that organization learned you're going to overpay average defensemen in free agency, and when you have the opportunity to go out and get an actual difference maker on the blue line for one of your precious, great young forwards, and you don't do it, all you're doing is perpetuating the mediocrity that you've been doing the last few years.
Yeah. It's well said. I don't disagree with that. Damaris has value, though. I've talked to a couple people today
there's
about
no
it.
doubt he has value. I mean, he's a little better than average, better than average defenseman in the NHL. But if I'm Edmonton, I'm not focusing on Lucic because they already brought in a little bit of sandpaper. It didn't do much for him. I mean, Patrick Maroon's got all the sandpaper in the world. I mean, that's not the answer.
He was actually, I thought, really good for them, didn't you? Patrick Maroon was way better than I would have thought he would have been there.
Yes.
Yeah. But
which made me wonder if that that is what they need. That
right.
they
but
did.
That's fine. Then you don't need to spend the money on Lucic. You just need to keep Maroon around.
Right, Patrick Maroon's like a $1.9 million player. Then if he's successful, that's great, but you're not paying him $6 million.
Correct.
And to pay Demers over $5 million, which is what the market supposedly is for him, because he's one of the only right-hand shot defensemen in free agency, is idiocy. I mean, I understand that McClellan is familiar with him and likes him from his days in San Jose, but honestly, if you're going to do that instead of trading an Eberle or a Yakupov and getting a defenseman, I just don't get where Peter Chiarelli is coming from.
Yeah, I see that. The name I keep hearing with
and that's not good enough right now for that team. Like, it's just they need one really good defenseman, whether you get that via trade, and it's hard to get them. I get it, but you got to get it via trade or whatever. And I wouldn't want to trade Taylor Hall, but at the end of the day, if I have to trade Taylor Hall to do it, knowing now that I've invested again in another draft and forwards, that I might have to do it.
If I was them, I would go for Fowler over Shattenkirk. I thought about this a lot yesterday. If I just between the two defensemen, I would think Fowler is a better fit for Edmonton Oilers. I mean, I think
term too. He's got at least 2 more years.
2 years.
Right, and he's just a little bit more of a two-way defenseman in my mind. But Shattenkirk, I really think of it as a power play specialist, and
but Anaheim hesitates to trade with teams in their own division. They opted to trade with Toronto for Freddie Anderson rather than trade with Calgary.
No, that's for sure. And if you get similar returns, then why would you? But I don't know if they'll. But I think Edmonton can offer up things that no one else can offer up for Fowler. That really will be hard to match. So that's why I think that could be an. I mean, I keep hearing Chris Russell with Edmonton's name mentioned, and I think that's
again. I mean, I get it. Got a little offensive ability, but what is that going to do for you?
Again, this is going down memory lane. Mark Fane, Nikita Nikitin, Andrew Ferentz.
But don't you think Chris Russell's more of a defensive defenseman than those guys?
Well, he's trying to that because his offense left him, but he was supposed to be an offensive guy.
But he's a physical guy. I mean, I'm talking about they need physicality in that division. You can't win out west without a physical team. That's where I think the Edmonton Oilers are falling apart a little bit because they cannot be more physical.
Are they? No. Darnell Nurse gave him plenty of physical ability last year.
He gave him some. Yeah, I know.
This is how I look at it. Is Chris Russell going to be a top pairing defenseman for them? No. So you don't go after him. You either go get somebody who is a top pairing guy, or you don't get them.
The top pairing guys, like you said, are not available. There's none available via UFA. I mean, this defensive core's UFA are really, as we talked about yesterday, is really terrible. But there are guys out there, like Mark Streit or players like that who could be picked up.
So you have to make a trade for it. I agree. Now, Fowler is a viable top pairing guy. Shattenkirk is a viable top pairing guy.
And I would move Nugent Hopkins for either one of those two guys. I would tell you that right now. I would.
Here's the thing about Russell too. Once in a while he'll play 70 games. Once in a while he'll play 50-something games.
Yeah, I know.
He's always banged up. I don't like the signing. I could think of a lot better ways to do it. I don't think it would hurt him. Don't get me wrong, but if you're going to spend big money, here's the thing. Again, this is one thing that sometimes I see mistakes made. Teams are under the gun, so they go into a free agent market, and even if it's not the best free agent market, they try and land the best free agent there. And there's some years where you just shouldn't even bother, even though you might not get better, and you got to look another way because it's just not a good free agent market. Who cares if you get the best free agent in a bad free agent market? I don't understand that.
How about a guy like Luke Schenn? Let's talk about Luke Schenn for a second. Here's another UFA.
I would take Luke Schenn over Chris Russell. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Luke Schenn won't be able to demand as much. Luke Schenn could go to an Edmonton for, say, $3 million a year for 3 years, and that's That's a reasonable salary for a 26-year-old guy. You know, he'd probably be a 4, 5, or 6 for them.
Yep.
He's tough. He'll back up his teammates. He's a good character guy.
Should be tough, but he's not always tough.
Goals last year, so he did figure out how to pop in a few goals. So really, to me, it's better than Russell because I just like he's going to play more games than Russell, and they need guys who can play games.
Right.
I mean, could Luke Shen? I mean, he's the one. He's the one guy I keep thinking. I felt this way with Philly, and I was kind of disappointed it never happened. I always felt like this guy was going to be that late blooming defenseman. I mean, maybe and he's still not old, so it's still possible.
But he was an early blooming defenseman and got rushed up to the NHL.
Right.
Because he was an early bloomer, now they had to sort of resurrect his career, and I think what you see now is what you get. It's like that's it. That's what Tyler Myers, same thing. They resurrected him because he was rushed, and then usually you've plateaued, and so they get him back to the point where he's a really good player, but he will never have. I don't think there's any more ceiling for him. I just don't think he can get better.
And ironically, Russ, they were defensive partners in Kelowna, so that's.
Yeah.
But here's the thought, and I've heard Luke Shen mentioned to Toronto a couple times, and I know people laugh at that. But no, honestly, this is the thing. Babcock, I know for a fact, when Luke Shen was in Philly, when Babcock was in Detroit, they tried to get Luke Shen. Babcock is a big Luke Shen supporter. So, I mean, what for $3 million? Mike, aside from the fact that he played there before, and taking all that out of it, I mean, do you really think that he's not a logical person for them to pick up?
I don't think he's logical simply because the reason that they moved him was not only
take out what happened to him before. Look at where he is now.
Well, let me finish. The reason they moved him was because he is not a fleet of foot defenseman, and that hasn't changed. I mean, he's not slow, but he's not fast.
Slow. Yeah.
But he's not a very mobile defenseman, and like you said, I mean, I think he's big and he's tough, and he'll throw his weight around every once in a while. But for his size, I think he'd have to emphasize that physical ability a little more, and he really hasn't done that in his career. I mean, honestly, I don't think with the number of young defensemen the Leafs have right now, that they're more willing to give those guys a chance on the bottom pairing than sign a Luke Shen. Because Luke Shen is a bottom pairing NHL defenseman. He's not a top 4. I don't think he ever will be a top 4. He's 26 years old. The book is written on him in that respect. I could see them more going for a guy like a Brendan Smith from the Detroit Red Wings, who supposedly is on the market, rather than sign Luke Shen for $3 million a year. I think it would be a waste of money.
If they got Brendan Smith, that would be a good upgrade for them because I think he moves the puck better than even Oscar Klefbom, and at least then you've got 2 pairings worth of D-men that that give you that offensive push that you need because they don't have that right now. They may not, the role that they were playing Darnell Nurse in last year kind of lends me to think he may not get that opportunity there either. So then you have somebody for Nurse to pair up with, and I think that would be good because Smith.
We were talking about Toronto there too. We got kind of mixed up there. Not Edmonton. We're talking about Brandon Smith in Toronto.
Oh no, I was talking about in Edmonton. Okay.
I think Edmonton. I think it makes sense in both cities too. I do agree with you.
It does make sense for both.
I think that, and I'll tell you, I'll throw another thing in there that Brandon Smith is a big time Babcock player too. Like that's another guy that Babcock loves. So much so that there were a couple trades that I heard about that were turned down years ago because Babcock would not let them trade Brandon Smith. So.
Right.
Yeah, Brandon Smith's available. That they definitely, but that's a big if he's available. I'd be surprised.
Well, he's 1 year away from being an unrestricted.
Yeah.
And that's one factor. They need to re-sign Danny DeKeyser and Marchenko and a couple other of their RFAs. So they may want to clear out if Kenny Holland is determined that they're not going to re-sign him, and what you just said about him being more of a Babcock guy would lead me to believe that they wouldn't re-sign him. Then maybe moving him with 1 year left in his contract would make sense. And I'll go even further. If they strike out on Stamkos, which I think they're going to, they're going to need a center because they lost Brad Richards, or they decided not to sign Brad Richards. They did, Pavel Datsyuk went back to Russia. The Leafs are probably trying to shop or trying to move Tyler Bozak. So a deal like that would make sense.
One of the more interesting names I heard in the Troy Brouwer thing, I just want to mention this because it does tie into everything, was Tampa. And this was the first. Everybody's talking about how Tampa doesn't have any space. They got to do all this stuff, and then suddenly someone said to me, "Well, they also have talked about Troy Brouwer." So to me, this is an example of maybe of the backup plan.
Yeah, that's the backup plan for Stamkos.
They're like saying they're going to have to spend that money, so bring in a guy. I mean, Tampa does see themselves, even without Stamkos, as a playoff team that has a serious chance to make a run, and you want to bring in a playoff performer like Troy Brouwer. So this is a guy they could bring in. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it was an interesting thing. It's the first Tampa guy I really heard mentioned as far as forwards go.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, especially with Ryan Callahan probably out the first couple months of the season and recovering from hip surgery. They're going to need somebody who is, that type of player, and Brouwer fits into that mold, so that would make sense.
A quick note I had on Shattenkirk too. Andy Strickland came out and said that Dylan Larkin rumor was ridiculous and not true at all. And I would trust Andy on that one big time.
I would too.
Yeah.
Andy knows what he's talking about there. Former hockey buzzer, and he's definitely connected in with St. Louis. And there was confirmed too as well that Shattenkirk is not about just playing in the East or West. He really doesn't. He's okay with some of the Western. He's okay playing in the West. There were a lot of rumors that he wanted to play only in the East. Shattenkirk.
I still think he's ending up on St. Louis. I really do.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. I mean, the way they're treating it is going to be very hard. Although today it was the first time I talked to some people today in that camp that I really got a sense of just like of giving up on St. Louis. Like, and so for what it's worth, I mean, it's a couple days in now. That could all change still, and usually it is darkest before the dawn type stuff with these people. They get really frustrated. Now we're 2 days away from UFA. They know that if Shattenkirk isn't moved before July 1st, it gets harder to move him.
Yep.
And that's an issue right now. I can definitely see it. Scott Hartnell is another player that has started getting a little bit of talk. Columbus really has to clear cap space. They're desperate to move Scott Hartnell and move him to a team. And a team I heard would connect with him was the Islanders, and I wouldn't be shocked about that.
That would make sense. Hartnell to the Islanders. He could at least recoup, the 65 points that Okposo got, he could recoup, up to 50.
Yeah, and another good playoff performer, and that, these are teams that have to realize that have to look towards the playoffs.
And with them losing Matt Martin, he also brings that aspect in there too.
Yeah, yep, yeah. I think that could, and you can just see him in Brooklyn, can't you?
Well, yeah. He loves New York, right? Like anytime he played at the Garden, he loved everybody around the Garden. He loved that New York atmosphere.
Yep.
He's that kind of guy. He would fit right in.
Yeah, I could completely see him fitting right in. Let's see, what else do I have here?
He'll play against the Rangers, and the Rangers still hate him. It's perfect.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to throw out to all you guys out there and the bloggers as well, that I wanted to do a little bit of a competition between all of us going into the UFA day, and my concept was this: we would take 5 players, maybe we can say 5 or 10. You can tell me this is my thought. My thought is this: pick 5 players and get the most money. So essentially, let's see who you think UFA wise. Like, you can obviously Stamkos is going to be on everybody's list. Stamkos is going to sign for zillions of dollars. So throw that. You can even throw Stamkos out of this probably because everybody would take him. Right?
You shouldn't even
throw him out. So take Stamkos out of it. And now after Stamkos, pick me the 5 players that are going to get the most money out of on July 1st.
Sure.
And see we'll see how that works. And we won't talk about it till July 1st, but it's something we can talk about in the morning of July 1st. So just have that list together.
Mike will probably win though because he has the most free time.
What? Man, we'll see what happens.
I don't know what to say to that.
I don't know what to say to that. I just got text about Brian. I text someone from Edmonton who said that Brian Campbell they had heard was another possibility in Edmonton.
Let's go for the 37-year-old. Come on.
I know.
This is what I mean. This psycho.
No, but you do need that. This is the problem with Edmonton, though. Edmonton has always not gone for the 37-year-olds.
A number 1 defenseman.
Yeah, but you can't get that. You've got to fill out. You can't just focus on what you can't have.
Brian Campbell, if you know you can make the playoffs, they don't know that.
But that's the problem. They can have it. Honestly, unless Peter Chiarelli pulls off some deal between now and the first week of July, Peter Chiarelli is falling into the same pattern that the previous general manager in Edmonton did in falling in love with these forwards. Great, you've got 7 forwards who are incredible. The problem is there's only 1 puck.
No, there's not enough puck to go around for sure.
Scoring forwards and nobody on the blue line.
No, that's definitely the case. That's definitely the case. You guys have anything else today, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'll just tell you, I was at the NWHL tryouts over the weekend, and I wrote the first article yesterday. It's up on Sportsology, and it's kind of amazing. There was not a young player, a 38-year-old there And so people, if they want to check it out, go read the website. It's a lot of people gave a lot of support, you know, like
That's
she
awesome.
literally put everything on the line just to try out for that league in hopes of making it.
Wow.
And that's the beauty of like these kinds of leagues
Yeah.
and sports, is that there was that one opportunity. So she went and played, and then I happened to notice her, so I wrote about her, and now I think somebody else is going to write about her, and then maybe she'll get signed. And
Wow.
no previous college experience, no high school experience,
Just
like
a hockey
literally
player.
just a walk-on.
Wow, that is so cool. That is an amazing thing. I definitely
I'm
check
not
that
your
out.
name on purpose, so you go to Sportsology and check it out. Give me a lot of hits.
Nice teaser
There
there.
were a lot of other great players there too, and I really did see some talent. I put together a little scouting report I gave to a friend.
Awesome.
And I thought, hey, that was the first of 3 camps. I may go to the one up in Jersey too, because we forget. We forget, like, now that there's this opportunity
Right.
for women to actually get paid in the league, there are some players that have literally been waiting their entire lives for that. So it's nice.
When is the next camp, Russ?
I don't know. It's in Newark. Let me look it up real quick.
Let me know, because I would like to. I would love to. I would go up with you for that for sure.
While Russ is looking for that, from yesterday, I was struck by the number of players who weren't qualified before 5 p.m. on Monday for
Yeah.
the restricted free agents. And normally most of the RFAs get qualifying offers. Yesterday there was an inordinate amount of players who didn't get the qualifying offer and were unrestricted free agency, and a couple players who I think will draw some interest. I mean, it's tactical. Remember, you can not qualify somebody and then re-sign them, like Justin Schultz, who just won the Stanley Cup with Pittsburgh, was not qualified by the Penguins. Now, the reason he wasn't was because his contract, I believe, was in the high 3.8 million or something like that. And if they qualify him, it would have been over $4 million. They probably want to sign him for $1.5 million or $2 million a year, and they're gonna probably take advantage of the fact that he wants to stay in Pittsburgh to get that happen. But some good young players out there. I mean, Landon Ferraro didn't get qualified by Boston. Brett Connolly, a former first-round pick, didn't get qualified from Boston.
It's about Landon Ferraro because he's got the speed, but he just doesn't have the finish. And that's what I said even when he got drafted, and so far that's held. We'll see what happens with him, but that's he'll probably get picked up again because of the speed, but he just doesn't finish.
Yeah, and in Toronto, former first-round pick Stuart Percy, who had a couple cups of coffee, and I thought had a chance of being an NHLer, but never could stay healthy long enough or consistent long enough. And since he was a first-round pick of Brian Burke's team, this Lamoriello, Shanahan, Dubas, Hunter group, they're not invested in him, so they're letting him go to free agency. So a number of players like that, and there are going to be some opportunities for these players to find jobs elsewhere.
Yeah, they're going to be entering my UFA chart soon here.
Heck, we missed the Jersey camp. The next one's in Massachusetts, July 22nd. If you're driving, I'll go. I'm kind of sick of driving right now.
22nd. I don't think about that one. I would love to do that.
22nd through the 24th. So if you want to go like the final day or the first day.
Yeah, let me find out what's happening with the family. That would be fun. Okay. I would really like to do that. That would be really something.
Yep.
That's awesome. So yeah, so some of those RFAs now that become UFAs, they're going to be it's going to be intriguing. It's going to be very intriguing to see what happens there, and some of those will be added to the chart for sure. I haven't gotten any information on them yet, like you said, because there's a lot of this gamesmanship right now. So it all just happened. Justin Schultz is a really interesting one. He played very well for the Penguins. He showed a different side, I think, of him. He showed that in the right situation, he can make big news. I think he could be an okay player. I mean, we've ripped him a lot on this show over the years.
But he's turned the corner now. Like, I think we treated him fairly. Like
we did, no question. I agree with that.
And he has turned the corner where now, if he finds a team like Pittsburgh, he could fit into that style. There's no question.
Completely agree. And then I guess the final thing with today is the Hockey Hall of Fame we got to touch base on, because we yesterday we talked about Rogie Vachon. How about that? That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that was great that we actually did talk about him. And
I know.
I didn't know that somebody told me on my Facebook page, he said, well, I'm very old. This guy named Stu Dolgan, he actually has ties to Florida. His brother works for the team. He actually said that Rogie used to be called Roogie, like R-O-O, and then, of course, the LA media changed it.
Really?
Yeah, so the spelling was not always R-O-G-I-E. I think it was R-O-O-G-I-E.
Jeez, I had no idea on that one either.
Yeah.
I thought the picks were good, though. I mean, Lindros got in, which we talked about.
Yeah, that was a no-brainer.
I like that they went for Makarov.
Yeah, that was nice for Makarov. We talked about that with Kevin Allen, Mike and I did.
Okay, yeah. That was somebody that I thought that, I mean, that whole line should be in there, like to me.
Yeah.
And now what?
Right? In the Food Hall of Fame, but I don't know about the
Now, so Larionov is already in, right? So Makarov would be Makarov's
Yes.
in.
Yeah, but I mean, no, I have no complaint. I'm very happy that unfortunately Pat Quinn gets in posthumously, but I'm very deserving. 2-time Coach of the Year, winner of the World Junior, the Olympic gold medal. The only thing he didn't win was the Stanley Cup. But a great coach and a great manager in the league in a number of places, including Toronto. So yeah, I was very happy for him. Lindros was deserving. Makarov was deserving. Rogie was sort of like, I mean, he was the emeritus guy. I mean, I think he'd been eligible for 30 years.
Yeah.
Still, honestly, I think it should have been more than 4. I want Dave Andrechuk in there. I think Mark Recchi will get in.
I told you about Recchi. Like, I would put him in.
I know. I just think he's
I don't understand what this happens in baseball too. There are a certain amount of writers out there, and I guess people who vote clearly, that feel like, no, it doesn't feel right on the first ballot. And I think, who cares? If you deserve it, if you're deserving, you're deserving. This first ballot and unanimous nonsense has to stop in all of these sports. It's like, if you belong, you belong.
Yep, I do agree.
Like, why does Rogie Vachon belong 30 years later?
Yeah, he belongs 30 years later because it was a thin class. That's why.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
That's totally fair. I just think he has been overlooked.
Yeah, and there are some things that over time, time changes your perception on things, and some things become you remember them differently. Some things become you realize they were bigger than they were at the time. Like Rogie Vachon was playing at a time when a lot of other goalies were playing too. You
made me relook at him yesterday, Ak, and that was good because when I relooked at him, I said, I knew he won his cups with the Canadians, and I knew people thought of him as a backup. But clearly he wasn't the backup the year he won the Vezina and won the cup with them. And that's what I had to point out to someone on my Facebook page, like, hey, he won a Vezina. He could not have been a backup and win the Vezina that year. So let's not just say, oh, he was a backup and then he did play with a really bad Kings team. And that really did hurt him for all these years. It's amazing.
And that Kings team was like, at that point in time, was kind of, it's hard to picture like what they were really about, but to the rest of the hockey world, that probably the equivalent of like the Florida Panthers these days, like that they were not, the Kings now, we think of the Kings now as a legitimate NHL team that's really been around for a long time, but in that time and period when it was like a sort of still an expansion team that was playing in a really weird market for them to play in, so like how people look at the Florida Panthers right now, it's kind of how people looked at the Kings then. So it was tough to make, and they had some great players on those Kings teams. Obviously, they had some really.
Dave Taylor, the rest, they were great.
But they never had much success in the playoffs, and that was the problem. They never really got very far, and.
Even Harry Howell was great for them, but you're right. I mean, they never had it. I do want to say about Pat Quinn, he was a Hall of Fame gum chewer, one of the best ever, and because he just worked that gum the whole game and also I had a chance, because when I first was starting writing, and I probably got a chance to see Quinn maybe 4 or 5 times in different press conferences, and then a lot when he played the Flyers, and I always attended because he was always entertaining in his press conferences. He loved the press loved him, and he was very worldly.
The originator of the lower body and upper body injury.
Yes.
Absolutely. Wow. That's great. Let's one other thing I wanted to mention, guys, and that's really funny. Pat Quinn was such a character. He's like a Brian Burkish type character to me, like but in a different way. Tomorrow I have to do the show a little bit earlier. I forgot to mention this, so we'll be on at noon tomorrow instead of 1. Okay. I've got meetings after that, so we'll be back, but we'll see you after that, guys. So enjoy the rest of your day. Tomorrow is we're really getting close now. We're only have Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday we're doing our big show for UFA Day. So we're getting close. So get ready, because remember that the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon.